Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jamar. Today's episode 138, and we're interviewing Larry B. How are you doing this morning, Larry?
Hey, I'm doing great.
That's great to hear. I'm glad to have you on. So let's dive in and get started here. Tell me about your childhood growing up. Start from when you're as far back as you can remember.
Well, in that period of my life, there was just one incident that kind of governed the rest of my addiction and recovery and all of that. Is when I was 9 years old, I had a 6-year-old sister that was hit and killed by a car, and that kind of set the tone for family dynamics. A lot of pain, a lot of emotion, a lot of depression, loneliness. Mom and dad, it probably affected them more, but that's for the next 25 years. That was the only issue I really had with my addictions. And we went on from there. I hit high school about junior year. I was about 13 or 14, and I snuck into mom and dad's liquor cabinet, and that was the first time that I drank. And it was that wow moment that all of a sudden I didn't feel lonely, hurt. All those feelings were negated by the alcohol, and I was addicted from my first drink.
Going back a little bit, what was it like growing up as far as when you were very young? How were your parents? Like is there anything you could remember as far back as like the way they were affected?
Up until I was 9, we had a very loving household. Dad spent a lot of time with me. It was just a good, loving atmosphere. But after that, everybody got distant. Mom and dad really. I actually felt that they blamed me for my sister dying, and so I grew up with that kind of guilt, and everybody was alienated. We didn't like each other. Got into arguments a lot, and then when my addiction kicked in, I was actually pushing back. I was trying to hurt myself to hurt them because of the pain I was going through, and things got pretty ugly. And the thing about my drinking is that I had a very sensitive nature to it. I mean, 4 or 5 drinks and I'd be in a blackout from the very first time I got drunk. And so I didn't drink a lot, but it sure caused a lot of chaos and havoc in my life.
How was your social life? When you were young, did that affect your social life?
I was kind of alienated, but I drifted toward the addict crowd. See, I grew up in the 60s in Chicago, and you could find the type of people that that's my social life, was with other addicts and alcoholics. And but with normal people or regular people or my parents or family, I was pretty much a loner.
Gotcha. And you think that had a lot to do with your sister passing away?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, that's the core issue. There's anger, depression. I missed her, and like I said, I got even with my parents because I felt they thought I was responsible, and pretty much that whole thing actually drove me to my first recovery.
Why did you think that your parents blamed you? Was there anything that they did to make you feel that way?
Oh, that day, as they were taking my sister on the gurney, my mom looked at me and scowled. "Why weren't you watching her?" And I heard those words, "It's all your fault," several times. At that, and I was only nine years old, and those words ran deep. And I actually felt like I was guilty and responsible for her accident. And so, yeah, the guilt and the depression just grew from that. I had to get away from my parents, and I said, I'm tired of you telling me what to do and yelling at me. I'm going to go join the Marine Corps. And I to this day, I still hear my dad laughing, thinking that, well, and you know, the Marine Corps finished me growing up, but they also taught me how to drink better. I actually was discharged from the Marine Corps for alcoholism, and it was, I drank because I felt bad, and that gush that you get, or that wow factor. I heard somebody saying it's like the great you know, and all the emotional pain left. So that's why I drank, was to drank to excess, was to get rid of all of that pain, and it worked for a while. But eventually, as I drank, like I said, I went into blackouts. Every time I drank, I started breaking out in handcuffs. Started waking up in holding tanks. One time I woke up and my car was on my best friend's front porch, halfway up the stairs.
Oh, wow.
And you know, that's the sort of stuff that drove me to recovery. When I was in the Marine Corps, I went to my first meeting, 19 years old, and it was in a pretty large base on the East Coast, and there was over 300 Marines in this particular meeting, and I heard
that's the largest meeting I ever heard of.
Yeah, well, and what's crazy, there was only like 400 Marines stationed on this base, so like 3/4 of them were in the meeting that night, and that's when I heard the message for the first time, and it took a while. But when I turned 21, I wound up in a county jail down in central Illinois, and usual stuff, violent behavior, breaking things, breaking plate glass windows, and waking up and not knowing a thing what I'd done. Well, somebody came and visited me in that jail and handed me the big book, and I remember that from that meeting I had in the Marine. So anyway, I got that big book, and there was an address. There's a meeting, a set of meeting schedules there that, you know, in this particular town, they had a meeting every morning, every afternoon, every night. So 21 meetings a week. And when I got out of jail, I went to one, and took a few days, and then, you know, for the fog to lift, and then I got into working the steps.
Wait, real quick, how long were you in jail for?
21 days.
How did that feel?
For the first few days, I was going through some pretty serious withdrawal. I probably should have been in a hospital, but, you know, 1979, they weren't really looking that close at alcohol poisoning and withdrawal. So for 3 or 4 days, I was, you know, there was pink elephants in the room. I was hallucinating, shaking, and about the 4th day, I started clearing up, and you know, and I started looking at my life. You know, here I'm 150 miles away from my home. My parents kicked me out. I got nobody, and so I got this book. I was reading the big book, and there was also a Bible in the room. So I was kind of reading both. And so after that, you know, getting out, the reason why I stayed so long is I didn't know anybody in town. I didn't have an address or anything, but somebody said, hey, why don't you tell them that you're staying at the local homeless shelter. And so I did. I wrote that down on a sheet of paper, and they finally let me out the next day. And so I went to this homeless shelter, and from there I started.
Real quick, going back, that led you to homelessness. What kind of things were you doing that your parents were throwing you out?
I was coming home drunk every night. I was neglecting finding a job. I couldn't keep a job. Coming in at 4 a.m, sleeping till 1, 2 in the afternoon, then going out and doing it all over again. And
Did you ever steal or anything? 'Cause I mean, you said if you couldn't hold down a job, how were you drinking? How'd you afford it?
well, friends, like there was a group of us that we took care of each other. Um, yeah, there was some crime involved. Um,
What kind of things?
let's see. Back then, I was a pretty good mechanic, and I could pull a set of heads off a Chevy small block in about 12 minutes, and or headers or carburetor. That's kind of group I was hanging out with, and I could always make some money with car parts, and then selling them to them, and then they paying me the labor to put them on. So I had a pretty good gig going until a couple of times I got arrested and lost all my tools, and
Did you ever stop to say what you were doing was wrong?
that came when I started working the steps.
Okay, fair
That
enough.
was when when I got to Peoria, I got out of this homeless shelter and started going to meetings. And like I said, the fog was still lifting, and I was listening to the people around the table. Uh, there was this one fellow, I'll never forget him. Now this 1979, so we're looking. I can't even count that high anymore. It's over 40 years, and he was a cement truck driver, and he was had been drinking, and he rolled his truck over, and it landed on a car, and it killed a family. And this was like several years before, and it was his story how he got through that, and he was sober, and I got interested in him. I started talking to him, and he became my first sponsor. And so he started talking about my background, and he goes, "Well, what's your family like?" I said, "I don't have one." What do you think about your dad?" "Well, he's all right. He's hardworking." "What about your mom?" And I just spewed forth all kinds of profanity and painful sayings. I hate her. And he stopped right there, and he said that's his trigger point to figure out, hey, you need to work on that. So we just started doing steps 4 through 9 just with my mom. And at one point I said, why should I even care about her? She hated me. She thinks I was responsible for my daughter dying. I just don't want to deal with her. And he looked at me, and I, to this day, I still remember these words: "Why, you arrogant so and so, did you ever think that yeah, you lost a sister, but your mom lost a daughter?" And man, that rested on me like a ton of bricks. I had never had that thought cross my mind before. And all of a sudden I said, wow, I never thought of it that way. And then all of the pain that she was inflicting and I was receiving, she was just like me. I mean, she didn't struggle with alcohol, but food and shopping. I mean, she had her other issues that she was out of control with, and just hearing that and thinking about, wow, she went through the same pain I did, and that for me was the great awakening. I thought, wow, that I never thought of it that way, and it was it changed my perspective of recovery and what I needed to do. And all of a sudden, I looked and I saw all the drinking I'd done, all the pain that I had inflicted, all the pain that I felt was just because of that resentment I had toward her. And when I said the word resentment, he started flipping through the book. He said, "Look here," and he showed me that page where it says resentment is the number one offender.
Yep.
And I didn't even know I was, how much that anger was making my life out of control. And so, I did that. I started working and started taking that inventory of all the things I had done, all the people I had hurt, all the money I'd taken, made that big fat list. I think it was like 30 pages. And then I started
You're
a
talking
lot
about
of that.
you're talking about the fourth step, right?
Yes,
Okay.
that big list. And I started putting all that down, and then me and my sponsor went through it together, because there's a lot of those things that you really can't do anything about. People are gone, or you don't know where they're at, or some people you would just inflict more pain on them. So we started working through that list, but it was still pretty extensive. And but somehow I kept floating back to, if I can get things right with my mom, I think that would a lot of this other stuff would work itself out. So I did. I started focused on praying for my mom, and I sent her a few notes, called her a couple of times, and just like talking to a glacier. Um, but about 9 months later, I got the opportunity to take a bus up to Chicago, and so I took a Greyhound bus in downtown, and I got a city bus, and she knew when I was coming, and I got off the bus, and the house was about 2 blocks up, and I got off the bus and I started walking up to the house, and I to this day it was a miracle. She looked at me and says, "Wow, what do parents and spouses, what do they always want? They don't want to hear, 'Will you forgive me?' They want to know that you stopped, that they want to see the change." And somehow mom saw the change 2 blocks away, and by the time I got up to the front porch, we just hugged like we hadn't hugged ever before, and tears were running down both our, and we never said a word. We just knew that that there was change in our lives. She that's all she was waiting for me, was to see a change, to see that I was not going to be that violent, mean, hard person anymore. She used the phrase "softer and gentler," um, and that's kind of been my life ever since. Is that the craving to use, the all of that slipped away. I went to college. I got married. I got 5 kids, 5 grandkids. I'm working in a very fulfilling vocation now. Um, I was a Chevy dealership mechanic for 25 years, and now I'm retired from that, and I'm working as a camp counselor, working with high school kids, and I have I sponsor people in recovery. I do this thing called Celebrate Recovery. It's you just can't imagine the change from that hardcore Chicago street thug to what the program's given me back today.
Real quick, because I'm not too familiar with it, but I have heard it before. What is Celebrate Recovery? So what is their program?
Celebrate Recovery stands on the shoulders of AA. They use the 12 steps. They have support groups, the sponsorship. The extra thing they have is they plug people back into a spiritual program. You usually find them, in churches it's more about, it adds to higher power, and they definitely let you know that your higher power is Jesus Christ. I still am a firm believer in AA that people need to come to AA without that idea that the church people are going to descend upon them. But eventually, when the miracle happens, people look back and say, "Wow, that was God." And so, and that's what Celebrate Recovery is. It's basically the 12 steps in helping people get into a walk with their higher power, and we call him Jesus.
Okay, so it's a very Christian-based approach.
Pretty much, yes.
All right. How does that work for you?
It I do both. When somebody's in recovery and they want something more, I'll bring them. I'll introduce them to Celebrate Recovery. But for the newcomer that's just raw and still coming off, still in the fog, I'll take them to an AA meeting first, because that's um, when the two founders, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob, um, they found their experience, strength, and hope is how they recovered. And that's the pure thing about AA, is that it's when AA works its best, it's another alcoholic helping another alcoholic get sober. And that's been working ever since 1935. And yeah, so there's a bunch of these extra groups that that kind of piques people's interest in different ways. But the bottom line is, when you come in and you got a hangover and you got your wife wants to leave and you got a court case, and there's nothing that works better when you walk in a room full of people that went through that same thing, and they have no judgment. They have nothing but kindness and firmness. A good AA group won't let you be in denial, or won't let you tell tales, or they'll call you out on your stuff, and that's what worked for me. I was a street thug that thought I had all the answers, and I didn't. And so I will always bring a newcomer who is a day, so maybe 5 minutes, or maybe they're a little bit toasty when they come into the meeting. But I always bring them to AA first, because they're going to meet somebody that's going to relate to them, somebody that's going to cause a light to go on in their head and heart.
And I would like to think at that point, when you take on someone new, you may not know what they believe in. And AA is more open, because they say, as you understand your God, as we understood him.
And it's not important that you understand God right away. What is important is that you understand that you're an addict, that you need help, and that you're willing to make a decision to do something about it. The first three steps, I can't, God can, so I'm going to let him. And it doesn't matter what you believe before you get in. You got to be desperate. You got to say, man, I've tried everything. I can't do this. What do I do? Help me. And you get around the tables, and there's always somebody that has an experience to share with you. And a good AA group won't tell a guy what to do. They'll say, this is how I did it. This is what changed my life. If you think you want what we got, follow our footprints. So that, July 4th, I just celebrated 30 years clean.
Wow! Congratulations.
That's awesome.
That's huge.
Yeah, thanks for that, and I appreciate that, and I think you found me on this new AA group that we're. I've discovered, I've been out of the game for a while. I've been kind of it's been hard. I'm in an area where meth addiction, heroin, and fentanyl is big, and I just the stories are sad. They hurt, and for several years I've kind of backed off, because it just. But since I've gotten into this group now, this new group, I'm realizing that God, my higher power, wants me to get back in the game, and war. It's not a game, and I've had opportunity to share with several newcomers on this website, and it's causing me to look around my area here, and somebody even challenged me, well, if you're too far away from a meeting, why don't you start one? Well, I have done that in the past, and so the last 4 or 5 years, I've just been out of it. It's been too hard. But if I stay out of it too long, who knows? I might say, pour me another drink. I don't know. I've seen people go down with 20 years, 25 years. So yeah, I'm actually at the point now. I'm looking for ways to either start a meeting or get back into something. I'm not sure how that is. I'm just kind of open to the spirit of the universe to see what happens next. So,
Great. We should definitely chat. I'm looking to start some meetings in person. Addicts Anonymous has their own program. I'll share with you afterwards. We have our own 10 steps and 10 traditions. And some of the steps are like AA. Like the first and 12th step, no matter what your program is, you have to do it. Obviously, you have to take step one and tell people or tell yourself you have a problem. Otherwise, there's no reason to get better. If you don't have a problem, what are you going to fix? You have to recognize you have a problem. And then step 12 is what keeps us sober. For some reason, like you said, back in 1935, Dr. Bob and Bill, mainly Bill W. figured out that by one drunk helping another, just like he helped Dr. Bob, that kept him sober.
Yeah. The steps are a circle. When you get to the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening, we sought to carry the message and practice these principles in all of affairs. That connects you back to somebody just starting out in the program in step one. And so then you sponsor somebody and you go through those 12 steps with somebody else, you're reinforcing them in your own life. And it's a beautiful thing, and like I said, I've been away for a while, but that was my alcohol testimony. I also got a drug addiction testimony. I know you're probably out of time here with this one, but
no, we got a little bit more time. What kind of stuff was different with the drug addiction?
Well, see, I told you with alcohol, it was definitely that, I was drinking to fix myself from pain, but about 10 years later, a little less than that, I remember it was at a Super Bowl party for the Chicago Bears in 1986 when they won it all. And I was at a Super Bowl party, and a family member brought some drugs there and laid them out on the table, and I did it. And I tell you, it was the whole issue with me and drugs was I liked them.
What kind of drugs was it that you tried the first time?
It was marijuana, crack, and blow, all three at once. And I tell you that I fell in love with them, and that had nothing to do with my issues. Those were all solved. It just all of a sudden now, hey, here's something. I kind of didn't do all those all the time. I smoked pot for several years, and then the pot dried up, and I discovered pot's a gateway drug, and that got me into crack and blow, and 86 and 3 years later, 1989, I got busted and had a felony possession charge. And then I said, man, I need to stop this. I got a wife and 5 kids. I shouldn't be acting like this. And when I tried to stop, whoa, what a great awakening. I couldn't. I was in bondage to it. For the next 3 years, I tried everything you could to quit and cut back, just smoke pot, just switch to cigarettes. For 3 years, I tried everything. And then my wife packed up the kids and left. And January 3rd, 1992, out of despair, I shoveled a bunch of pills down my throat and washed it down with alcohol. And then I started feeling the effects of it. And all of a sudden I realized I asked God for another chance. And I hung over that toilet, tossed everything out I could, and just held there, begging God for another chance. And I could feel the numb body, and it stopped around my waist, and I would start to lay down, and I could feel it. And I knew if it got up to my chest, I was gone. So I would grab the toilet up and down, off the floor, on the toilet, for 5 hours. I just hung there, begging God for another chance. And then when I fell asleep, I woke up and it was noon the next day, July 4th. That was the Great Awakening, and God gave me another chance, obviously, and He also took the obsession away. I checked myself into treatment for 6 months, and so July 3rd, I almost died. July 4th, when I woke up, that's my Independence Day, and I'm on this recovery right now is what I'm on for 30 years, and it almost took my life, and with my higher powers health, who I call God, got me through that night, and I started doing what I needed to do, and started, like I said, went into treatment, got back into the program, got back working the 12 steps, and at this point, it was. I had to admit and confess that I liked it, and that's why. And for the next 2 years, I struggled with drug dreams, cravings. Um, uh, and it was so tough. It was so close. Um, the drug dealer lived right next door to me in an apartment, and if I wanted something, I'd just tap on the wall and he'd come over. But what stopped that is when I got arrested, I got on. They didn't have the ankle bracelet. You had to stay home, and they got a little gadget on your phone, and if you didn't answer the phone, they would be out there. So 2, 3 in the morning, I got a probation officers coming over to visit. Well, the guy next door moved because that scared him, and that was one of the things God did to begin to protect me. And me and my wife both we packed up, left Central Illinois, moved to Wisconsin, and I don't know. I think every addict, alcoholic gets that one move. I mean, we don't keep moving to try to hide from working the program, but that was my one shot to go, and we moved to Wisconsin, and I got a job with a Chevy dealership, worked there for 17 years, and retired from that and moved here to Arkansas. But that night, I'll never forget, July 3rd, as long as I live, that and I shouldn't be here because, but just, begging God for another chance made a difference. And I tell people, I tried for 3 years to quit. I couldn't quit. I was delivered. And I think sometimes when it comes to drug addiction, the bondage is so strong. Is that and that's the first step. We admitted we were powerless, and being powerless is a scary place, and it's a hard thing for people to admit, to say I can't do this, and we gotta drink every drink and take every drug to get to that point of despair, and so that's my story, and I hope somebody can see the path, and can turn before they get down to the last barricade. And so many people lately have just been crashing through that barricade. Just a couple of days ago, there was somebody on this website that he was texting from a hospital, and he had just lost his wife to drug use, and had a picture of her laying there with her puppy, and that was Sunday morning, because I sit down and I read this AA thing on Sunday morning or in the morning, and that broke my heart. That so many people are what do they say, that this leads to jail, institution, or death. Jail's an institution I wasn't afraid of, but dying, yeah, that's what made me change my mind and get this program and do the steps and be honest and hang around other good recovering people. That'll save your life.
Absolutely. Part of our 4 pillars. We have 4 pillars of our program, and the 4th one is community. It is absolutely one of the most important things, is to build up a community around you. Nobody wants to feel alone. You know what I mean?
They get lost in that. Sometimes being alone is a drug, and they don't realize how devastating it is to the rest of their life.
Yeah. So my last question for you is, do you have any advice for people watching and listening? And I know that's a big question, so take your time with it.
No, it's a simple question. Is go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps, go to meetings, do what you're told. Here's that one sponsor I had, that cement truck driver said this: sit down, shut up, listen, and then afterwards we'll talk about what you heard. But the biggest thing, shut up and listen. We've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak. And when we open our mouths, everything in our brain just kind of pours out of it. We keep our mouths closed, things kind of stay there. So many people, when they get into a meeting, they want to just start spewing forth their program, which ain't a program. So I hate sponsors that are harsh, but the best thing we've heard it before is suit up, show up, sit down and shut up. And then my sponsor would sit with me after the meeting and say, hey, what'd you learn tonight? And that, so many of us, an audience is a trigger. In the big book, it talks about the actor on the stage. Well, what needs to happen to the actor on the stage is the audience get up and leave. And so that's the biggest thing, is listen. I mean, if you're in a good group, well, I guess that'd be another thing. Make sure you're in a good group with got some good recovery in it. But get a sponsor, work the steps, go to meetings, read the big book. Simple question. It's what we all have done that have survived.
Yeah, that's great advice. I really appreciate you laying it on us. So did you have anything else you want to add?
See you around the tables.
See you around the tables. All right. So let's wrap it up here. I really appreciate you doing the show today. How do you feel?
It's rewarding. Service work, 12-step work. I miss it. I need to do more of it. And I promise that I will.
Yeah, absolutely. This is part of service work. It's just like, doing a speaker meeting, but you got me poking and prodding a little bit with some questions to kind of tell that story. But I really appreciate you doing the show today. It means a lot.
Thanks a lot, Jim. I appreciate you. I'm kind of surprised at how young you look.
I'm 39, but I mean, you get close up, I got plenty of gray hair. I've earned it. Okay. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I've been sober only 2.5 years, 2.5. My sober date's March 10th, 2020, whatever that is. But yeah, I've gotten that before, that like some people's like, oh, for all you've been through, you don't look so bad.
Yeah.
For all the drugs and shit I did. All right,
Yep.
cool beans. Let's wrap it up here. So sit tight, Larry. And for everybody else watching and listening, if you like what you saw and heard, go below, give us a like. Also subscribe to see when we upload new videos. You can also check us out at www.addicts-anonymous.com. There you'll find plenty of resources, as well as our approved literature tab has plenty of articles for free. And I hope you find those and they help you. You can also check us out on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So hopefully you'll check us out, get some information from us. That's all we have for today. I hope you like what you saw and heard. And until next time.